Hi everyone, welcome to the new week. It's Monday the 3rd of August. Can you believe we're in August? And this is episode 82 of the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, Ben Eagle. If you're listening to this in a tractor cab or a combine cab, keep up the good work and I hope Harvest 2020 is going well for you. We've got Bucks farmer Richard Heady on the show today, but before that, let's take a look at some news stories from the past week. In the news this week, there's been delight in quite a few farming circles and mixed response in conservation circles that greening arrangements, for which farmers currently have to maintain at least 5% of their land as an ecological focus area, such as buffer strips and cover crops, and grow at least 3 different arable crops if they have more than 30 hectares of arable land, has been scrapped. This is being done in the wake of the beginning of a new system of environmental land management contracts, which it's hoped will deliver more for the environment overall. DEFRA has also confirmed that it will begin to phase out BPS payments between 2021 and 2028. The first part of the National Food Strategy, which is being led by entrepreneur Henry Dimbleby, has been published, which focused on maintaining food standards and supporting the health of children. The first part of the report can be read at nationalfoodstrategy.org. The Department for Health also published last week the government's new obesity strategy, which includes details on allowance of advertising and regulation on offers, but we'll wait to see what impact this might have on UK ag in the medium term. And that is the news for now. It's now time for Farmer Focus, and this week I'm speaking to mixed farmer from Buckinghamshire, Richard Heady. It's Farmer Focus. This evening I'm really pleased to be joined by a farmer who, in terms of telling his farming story, is one of the more, or probably most active people that I know on Twitter. Rich Heady, who you can follow on Twitter at Heady's Farm, runs a 1,000-acre mixed farm in Buckinghamshire on the edge of Milton Keynes with his family. The farm includes 700 acres of arable cropping and 300 acres of grassland, which is mostly used to fatten store cattle. He also runs a small flock of clean Texel Cross sheep and sells lamb and beef boxes to the surrounding villages and the local butcher. As I alluded to at the start of this intro, he is heavily engaged on social media and makes brilliant little videos about his life and work on the farm, which we'll definitely talk about. Rich, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing? And what is your Harvest 2020 looking like, given we're recording this on the 22nd of July?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I can't say the same about Harvest. We've not started yet. We've got a lot of kind of green ears of crop which develop quite late in amongst the ripe stuff. So it's going to be really challenging when we do get going to get the crop dry enough. So it's just capping off a really tough arable year. And meanwhile, while we're waiting to get the combine going, pigeons and crows are helping themselves at a pick your own buffet and getting fat on the grain. So kind of every day we wait, we're losing some, but hopefully we're going to get kind of an easier crop to combine at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, it has been an absolutely unbelievable year, hasn't it? In no matter where in the country you are. I mean, what's it been like in Bucks?
So we're fairly lucky. We're on quite heavy soil, so it's retained a lot of the moisture through the spring. But again, we got wet fairly soon in the autumn, so we've got very little of our winter cropping planted. So we had to do a lot in the spring. That's going all right, but recently we've kind of been swamped by weeds. So the wild oat weeds and blackgrass have really come back with a vengeance this spring. So the farm's looking quite untidy at the minute. I'm not too optimistic for harvest, but got to keep fingers crossed and hopefully it will surprise us.
Yeah. I know that you do a fair amount of spring cropping in here, and certainly your lays in order to keep on top of your blackgrass. What is your blackgrass situation like?
I'd like to say we've kind of got it under control, but this year, certain fields we haven't been able to treat like we normally would, and the blackgrass is kind of getting ahead of us in those. But say a mixture of spring cropping, late planting of our crops, Some of the chemicals we're still allowed to use, and say the grass lays for the cattle, giving the fields a break and putting grass down for a couple of years. Kind of, it's all helping. So I think we've got our strategy, but as we all know, the blackgrass is a very clever weed, and I'm sure it'll find a way to have another go at us.
Have you got quite a few mixed farms where you are, or are you sort of a bit of a lone ranger?
Yeah, no, we're in quite a mixed area, which is it's really nice. You know, you drive around this area, and there's kind of rolling grass hills, and then arable fields tucked all over the place. So it's quite a kind of a nice mixed area. There used to be a lot more dairy around this area, but
Yeah.
Since dairy farms had such a hard time, that's really reduced.
Give me a bit of history about the farm, as I think I'm right in saying that previous generations of the family farmed on land that's now practically central Milton Keynes.
Yeah, yeah. So my dad was born on the farm in central Milton Keynes. It's now under John Lewis and Campbell Park. So yeah, that was a really tough time for them. I think a lot of people kind of think you'll get paid a lot of money back then to have your land built on, but it was just taken from them, and they were paid kind of minimum agricultural value.
Wow.
And they were told to get out, really. And they were lucky enough to get this place not too far away where we farm now. But kind of history is almost repeating itself as Milton Keynes creeps ever closer towards us.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, do you actually genuinely see the prospect of that happening again?
Yes, kind of some fields we have houses next door to now. So, you know, fields which were quite remote and we had no trouble with. Now going there to combine, you've got to keep an eye out for tyres, sticks, rocks.
Yeah, yeah,
And you can just see kind of tracks where people have had a good wander around.
yeah.
It's just bringing new challenges.
Yeah, so let's go back to your uni days. Actually, you went to Harper Adams, and while you were there, you did a placement year at Sheepdrove Organic Farm in Berkshire.
Yeah.
Tell me about that time and what you learned from it.
That was probably one of the best years of my life. Kind of being thrown in the deep end on a busy farm was just brilliant. You know, the farm at home is always a good place to start, but you never quite get thrown in the deep end like you do in a proper work environment.
Yeah.
And because the farm was quite on big scale, you had lots of expertise there. So we had a brilliant sheep manager, brilliant beef manager, brilliant poultry manager, brilliant arable manager, and we just went there and sucked in all this information and all these skills, as well as earning a bit of money, which was always good. But yeah, it was just a brilliant place to be. They had on-site chicken processing. They sent us off for a week in their butcher shop in Bristol.
Wow.
We just had the time of our lives, really, just kind of earning money and playing with big toys and, you know, really working hard, but also learning loads and just meeting some great people.
Yeah, yeah. And after uni, you went to Australia and New Zealand, and you worked on a number of farms. Tell me about the mango farm first.
Yes, we ended up in Broome, which is kind of quite northerly on the western side of Australia. And it's quite sleepy, and we had a bit of time there, so we were looking for a place to work. And we contacted a mango farm, and yeah, we spent a good couple of weeks there. We slept in, I think it was like a sheep trailer or something.
Yeah.
And we helped out picking mangoes, and they had a shop on site, so we were making mango smoothies. They had a pizza oven, so we kind of did a couple of nights serving pizzas to the public.
Nice.
It's really nice to get off the tourist trail, meet some proper Australians.
Yeah.
You know, see the frilled lizards in the trees and fruit bats, and see some real Australia.
Amazing.
Before heading back on the tourist trail again.
Wow. How long were you in the country for?
We were in there for 4 months.
Okay.
So we kind of did 2 months on the west coast and 2 months on the east coast.
And then you worked on a dairy farm in New Zealand?
That's right, yeah. We had some kind of friends who knew some people out there. So they put us in touch, and we went and we kind of helped out. I've never milked a cow in my life, so I think it took me like probably 20 times longer to put the first set of clusters on than anyone else. But it's all a brilliant experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, you weren't tempted by dairy back in the UK then?
No, I'd say I was. That's a tough job, and yeah, no, I completely got a newfound respect for all dairy farmers.
Yeah, yeah. And then you spent some time traveling around South America. How long were you out there?
So that was 3 months in South America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. Just the different culture. We had a little bit of Spanish we learned kind of
Yeah.
as we were doing the rest of our travels, and just to be immersed in that. And it was just the culture. We went on the Inca Trail, we saw whales, we climbed an active volcano, we went into a working silver mine, we cycled down the world's most dangerous road. It's just these opportunities are still out there,
Yeah.
and it was just amazing to take 9 months away from the farm and just do all these mind-blowing things before we can kind of come back and get stuck back into farm life and really kind of commit to the rest of our life back on the farm.
So when you came back to the UK, you didn't go straight back to the family farm, but you worked for a few years on a different farm. Was that important for you?
I think it is. Every time I've got off the farm, I've kind of really seen a different aspect to farming life. And, it's so easy to just do what your dad does. But actually, there's so many different ways of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And each farm you work on, you probably do the same job in a different way. And then, it's up to you how you do it in the future. But you've got all that experience under your belt. And just meeting different people, having the contacts, it's just such a great experience. I'd urge anyone in agriculture who's quite young just to go out and work on lots of different farms, lots of different systems. See what organic is, see what conventional is, see what big farms like, see what small farms like, and just soak it all in, because then you can make these more educated decisions when you come back and really want to crack on your own farm.
What's it like working with your family?
Yeah, it's good. We've got I think we've got quite a good dynamic. None of us are fiery characters. We don't always agree on stuff, but we'll never let it turn to an argument. We'll probably just kind of walk off saying, I would have done that differently.
Yeah.
But no, it's really nice working with Dad and the uncle, and you hear a lot of history as you farm. And I'm always going to look back on this time, I think, and appreciate having this time with my dad and my mum and my uncle on the family unit. It's just invaluable, I think.
Yeah. Have you got any siblings?
I do, yeah. I've got a brother and a sister, so they're around the industry. So my brother's got a small plant nursery and does gardening. My sister has done some grain trading.
Yeah.
So kind of farm related, but I'm the only one from kind of my cousins and my brothers and sister who are back on the farm full time.
Yeah. We'll talk about social media in a bit, but before that, I want to talk about running, which I know is something that you and I share, although I haven't yet achieved marathon standards like you have. One thing I have found out about you, which I'm not sure how many people know about this, but you have a pending world record for the longest distance traveled on monkey bars in 1 minute, which is, if anyone wants to know, it's 56.6 meters, which is a long way, which smashed the previous record of 35 meters. That is so impressive. Tell me more about that.
I'm quite a light person, and being in farming, you end up trying to do the same amount of lifting as everyone else. So I've always had quite a good strength to weight ratio.
Yeah.
So I've always liked my rock climbing and stuff like that. I signed up to do, it was the world's longest obstacle course, which was 20 miles. It was a rat race kind of a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it sounds
and
amazing.
They were trying to break a world record. So kind of the night before the big race, they were saying, like, looking for people to go and have a go at cracking this world record. And, the stars aligned and we kind of boshed out quite a distance. And we just kind of fingers crossed that Guinness accepts it. It's been a long time now, and I'm starting to wonder whether there might be some issue with the recording or the logging of it. But, fingers crossed. I'd love to have a world record under my belt.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell me, because I've often wondered what that process is. What is the process with Guinness? What do you have to do?
Well, it was all set up by the race company. So they took some footage. They were measuring everything and recording everything as they did it. So I've kind of relied on them to have done the due diligence to kind of send it all off and have set it up right.
Yeah.
But I think it does take a while. I've got a friend who first was the youngest female to have walked to the North Pole, and she said it took a couple of years for her record to come through.
Wow. Let's turn to Farm Runner. So some listeners will hopefully now know about Farm Runner, although I don't bang on about it very often. Farm Runner is a way of getting people out running on farms and encouraging conversation about food and farming. We started it here in Essex about a year ago. You've made some quite brilliant, I have to say, Farm Runner videos. Listeners, just search for #FarmRunner or follow Farm Runner on Twitter. at Farm Runner UK. I mean, and you can find some of Richard's videos on there. What do you get out of Farm Runner? Why do you take part?
It's kind of mixes both my passions. So I get a lot out of running because it's some time to kind of think about something else in the farm, getting outside, getting
Yeah,
away from your troubles, and also I think the endorphins have a big effect. You know, you always feel quite good after going for a run.
yeah, massively.
And then Farm Runner also links that into just communicating with the public. So when I started running, I joined a local running club and we did some runs, some cross country runs. And I was just kind of flabbergasted by how little some people knew about the countryside.
Hmm.
So I was finding I was having a lot of really good conversations with people, just chatting. Oh, that's this crop. Oh, you know, they're doing that for this reason. Hey, look, this is a field of cattle. Let's walk this bit and not kind of wave your arms around and make a lot of noise.
Mm.
And they really took it on board, and I got a lot out from it. You know, talking to non-farming folk on farm.
Hmm.
I think it's a really important way to teach them about how we farm and just open up to them. And Farm Run is just a great way of doing those things.
So is that when your sort of interest in public engagement and having those conversations, I suppose, started?
They kind of started in a different way, really. Being on a family farm, I was struggling for kind of career progression, and I've kind of always got this sense I want to be achieving something. So first of all, I signed up for the London Marathon purely because I needed to achieve something for my sanity. So that kind of started running. And then also the social media is just something I can chip away at. I feel like I'm just doing something little, but it's actually helping in the grand scheme of things.
Yep.
And it's always nice to feel like you're achieving something, you're moving forward, you're making connections.
Yeah, I mean, you've been Digital Innovator of the Year finalist in the British Farming Awards. You've also attended a Just Farmers workshop, and you were an Oxford Farming Conference Emerging Leader earlier this year before the entire world changed. It does seem, I can't believe that was only January. It feels like years and years ago.
Well,
But why do you spend so much time and effort, I suppose, doing all this stuff?
I guess it's become a bit of a hobby, really. And when you can see something working, you know, you're getting the interactions, you're talking to people, you're having these really good conversations. You kind of want to keep doing it because, you know, you're having a positive effect. I'm getting some positive feelings out of it just from
Yeah.
talking to people. It's a feel good thing, really, I think.
So tell me about your involvement with both Social Jungle and Just Farmers, because they were clearly two quite important experiences for you.
Yeah, so Social Jungle kicked off my whole kind of social media journey, really. The NFU hosted a meeting with them, and I went there with the aim of improving my Landbox marketing. And I kind of left with my eyes open, thinking, well, there's so much more we can do with this. You know, there's a whole world out there of people who are interested in agriculture. And if you can do your own little bit, then it all helps.
Yeah.
So I left there being really inspired and kind of looking for more opportunities. And that's how I kind of bumped into Just Farmers. So I saw a post from Anna on Twitter, and yeah, signed up. So yeah, that's just a couple of workshops that I've been to, and you get to meet people in the media industry, so you can really improve your skills in talking to the media. Because I think a lot of farmers are scared of the media and would almost go into their shells a bit, when actually we've got a story to tell. And if we don't tell our side of the story, no one else is going to do that for us. So going to those workshops, I learned, you know, how to talk under pressure. So you had a camera pointed at you and was being questioned by Heather Simmons from the BBC. And, you know, you can really see the skill of the interviewer just kind of pushing you either where they want to or getting the most out of you. And it was really good to kind of see how we react under pressure.
Yep.
And to have that confidence then to go, you know what, I could do this for real.
Yep.
I could go out there and talk on live radio or telly. And it's just gave me the skills and confidence to talk to the media, as well as also being able to see my farm from an outsider's point of view.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's quite easy to think, just carry on doing what you're doing. You know, you talk about drilling, you talk about this and that, and actually the world doesn't know what drilling is. They think you've got a cordless drill and you're putting holes in a wall.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
you know, it's really important to see your farm from the outside, so you're able to explain to people what you're doing and why. And Just Farms and Social Jungle really gave me the skills and the confidence to do that.
You sort of say that there's lots of people doing small things, but that does build up. But do you think the industry as a whole, I suppose, does enough to promote itself and market its products, or does it leave this up to others too much?
Some and some really. It's important to get our message out there. I think it's important to be relatable so people don't think we're a different species. I want people to be able to come and ask us questions. And I think there's a lot of people out there doing that, and initiatives like Farm 24, where we have a whole day of just putting everything we're doing, all farms around the country, on social media with hashtag Farm 24. I think they're really important initiatives. Could we do more? We probably could. Open Farm Sunday is brilliant as well, and if more farms can do it, I would love to do it at some point. But our farm's a tip. But there's more we can do. But also, we need to look after ourselves, and the more people put themselves out there, you can also take a lot of stick for it. So, we're making good progress, I think.
Do you think that greater connection, I suppose, with the British public could ultimately, or can ultimately actually result in I suppose, a better bottom line? Is it that linked, or is it about more than that?
It is more than that, because it's about supporting British, and it's a feel-good thing, isn't it? Supporting your country, buying produce produced in your country. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think the take-home fact needs to be that we are producing food to the quality they demand. Because, you can buy all this imported food, but they're using chemicals that we're not allowed to.
Yeah.
And they're using GM technology that we're not allowed to. And the reason we're not allowed to is because we don't think it's acceptable in this country. So I think it's really important that people understand that by buying British, they're buying produce to their standards. And if we all bought British, it would help the bottom line, but it would also guarantee that we're getting a quality standard of food and a quality of countryside assurance. You know that we are looking after the country to those standards.
Yeah. Do you think that COVID and everything that's happened might actually, in some strange way, have an influence on people thinking about that more, thinking about local environment, thinking about supporting British farmers?
I think it might have a small impact. I've really enjoyed seeing more people out on footpaths, and there's been a lot more cheery waves from people walking their dogs places they never would have done before. Yeah. So hopefully they're getting out there and they're getting in amongst it, and they can see what we're doing, and perhaps they're going to start asking questions and taking an interest. And also people stepping into farm shops and local deliveries for the first time. I think it's all really important, small steps, but I'm not entirely convinced we're going to have the huge legacy that perhaps it should do, of people carrying on to use the footpaths and the local shops.
Have you seen any impact on your meat boxes?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit more interest. We fatten our livestock kind of on grass alone. We don't push them on too much. So the lambs are just getting fit now. So I kind of think we've missed the boat of the peak demand for the kind of the COVID-related buying. Yeah. But I do think there are people thinking, you know what, we'll buy a freezer and we'll buy in bulk locally.
We've got obviously potentially massive policy change coming up, moving towards more a system, which actually in many ways is what it seems like you embody in many ways. The whole idea of moving towards a system of public payments for public goods, and you could say that actually your public engagement itself is a public good. But what impact do you think that policy changes might have? Are you thinking in a way that it's going to completely change what you do?
No, I don't think it will. I think all the time we're making decisions based on what we think is best for our farm and is best for our farm environment. And hopefully, the two will align. We can produce a public good for wildlife and people, at the same time producing food and improving our soils and improving our farm. But it's just really hard to plan ahead when we don't actually know the details. Our whole business, our whole livelihood is resting on this.
To take one example, you're currently in a mid-tier scheme, aren't you? When does that run out?
So we've got 2 years left on that scheme.
2 years, yeah, same as us here. And do you think you'll renew that?
I'd like to go into something else. This time of year, the farm is looking at its best, and you can really see the benefits that environmental scheme has brought. Kind of over the winter and stuff, you're like, is it really working? But you go into our legume fallow now, and it is just full of bees. Like, I was actually quite intimidated walking through it the other day just because of the pure hum of bees around me.
Wow.
And those legumes are sucking in nutrients from the air, they're pumping them into the soil, they're feeding the bees, they're providing habitat for the wildlife. The owls that live in the trees there, we've got an owl box in that field, they've had really successful breeding seasons because of that hunting ground. So, it's important to us, and it is working. And I really hope that the carrot is still there, that we can work with the new schemes to really get that farming benefit and environmental benefit together. Yeah. You've just got to keep everything crossed that they get it right.
But generally, broadly, you're pretty happy with your business model at the moment and sort of what you're doing day to day. There won't be any major changes in future years, or will there be?
I think there will be, but I think I'm on a mission to future-proof the business as we are. So I'm trying to move towards direct drilling and no-till, as it is, planting the crops directly into the soil, using cover crops to enrich our soil, and try and use less bought-in nutrients and less sprays. Yep. Just because I think that is a way of safeguarding our future. I can control the quality of the soil, hopefully, and a lot of those variables, but I can't control the price of diesel, the price of fertilizers, what sprays we're allowed not to use. So I'm trying to make the business as ready as possible for any changes that might happen.
If you had a message for the great British public, what would it be and why?
My message would be, talk to us. Like, if you have a question about agriculture, you have a question about how your food is produced, just find us and ask us, because I'm always happy to answer questions. And it's just really great engagement. If we can talk to people, we have the conversation, we can explain why we're doing things, even if it's something that people don't really necessarily agree with. Often, if you explain why you're doing it, they kind of can come to the conclusion that, they're not just doing what they have done because they've always done it. There's a lot of thought goes behind every decision we make. And I think if we can engage with the public like that, and they can engage with us, we can find a lot of common ground, and we can kind of have a really mutually beneficial chat, and, it can enrich both of our lives.
And finally, a message for your fellow farmers.
Message for fellow farmers. Yeah, I put out a lot of videos on social media, and I'm always worried that people think I'm trying to show them how things should be done, and that is definitely not the case. To the fellow farmers, just keep putting out your videos and let me see what you're doing, because I learn so much from everyone else. What I do and what I show on my videos is just how we're doing it at the minute, and not necessarily the correct way of doing it or the best way of doing it. And it's just great to see and talk to other farmers, because a lot of people question, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's brilliant. There are generally reasons why I do it, and there's generally probably better ways that I can do it. It's good to have those conversations.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you, and please do keep up the good work with all your social media stuff and on the farm.
Thank you very much. And it's been great to chat to you, and hopefully we can catch up for a run at some point.
That sounds good.
It's Farmer Focus.
Rich Heady, who you can follow on Twitter at Heady's Farm. That's all we have time for this week, but thank you to my guest today, Rich Heady, the show supporters, the Mercer Family Charitable Foundation, and to you, of course, for listening. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a comment or a review. That's how the people at Spotify, Apple, and Google know what to promote, and it would be really great to reach more listeners. Next week, we're talking flowers, and I'll be talking to West Sussex grower Ben Cross. Until then, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.